I moved into this apartment about 2 weeks ago. Everything suited me at first glance. Fresh renovation, cozy neighborhood, neighbors that I can barely hear. No shouting through the walls, no music at night, no drinking parties on the stairs. Even too quiet, if you ask me. I'm not a picky guy. I'm used to living in a dorm where there was always a lot of noise. So for the first few days, I was really enjoying the silence. Although later I started to involuntarily listen and flinch at every creak of the floorboards. One morning, when I was still half asleep, walking to the kitchen for coffee, my gaze caught something on the floor in the hallway. Some trash? No, a piece of paper. I picked it up and saw large, crooked, angular letters, as if written with charcoal. Quieter. How strange. And where did it come from? The scrap was tiny, crumpled. I decided that someone must have slipped it through the keyhole. What does this even mean? Quieter. I didn't even turn on the TV yesterday. I sat all evening with headphones rewatching a TV show. Who could I have bothered? The neighbors next door didn't seem to be there. The realtor said it was still empty. Downstairs? Well, yes. Downstairs there could be some nervous old lady. I shrugged, threw away the paper, and soon forgot about it. The next morning, in the same spot, a new note, in the same clumsy handwriting. Too loud. I frowned. What's this nonsense? Do I walk loudly or something, but I don't stomp on purpose? My steps are normal. This was starting to annoy me. If a paranoiac or some kind of psycho lives downstairs, then I won't have a normal life in this apartment. I know such people. The next day I got up earlier than usual, decided to go to the store for groceries, and almost stepped on several papers scattered at the doorstep. The words became more insistent. Don't knock, TV quieter, don't talk. The last one really got to me. Don't talk. How am I supposed to understand that? I live alone, I talk to myself or on the phone. I listened, looking at the door. Maybe some kids are messing around? Although I only saw pensioners in the stairwell, it's unlikely that any of them are doing such nonsense. I decided not to put off the conversation and went to get acquainted with the neighbors downstairs, clenching the crumpled notes in my fist. It's not that I really believed that I would find an explanation for this nonsense, but it's better to find everything out right away than to make guesses and worry at night. After standing for a few seconds in front of the door, I pressed the doorbell. It rang hoarsely. I heard the shuffling of slippers and a soft voice. I'm coming. I'm coming. The door opened, and an old woman appeared before me, very thin, all wrinkled, with a cloud of snow-white hair. She looked at me from under her brows, wary and distrustful. Good morning, I began cautiously. I'm from the apartment above, number 14. I just moved in. This is the thing. The old woman interrupted me unexpectedly sharply. You're from 14? Well, well. She shook her head as if she had already written me off internally. Everyone moves out of there quickly. No one stays there. I hesitated, not expecting such a reaction. And why do they move out? The old woman thought for a moment, clearly deciding whether to tell me, and then sighed and stepped back, letting me inside. Okay, come in, take off your shoes. I just washed the floors. I entered the dark hallway, feeling how everything inside me unpleasantly tightened from her words. It seemed like I was about to hear something that I wouldn't be able to just brush off. The neighbor's apartment was clean. It smelled a little like dried apples, dust, and some old soap. We went to the kitchen. She silently pointed to the table. I sat down and immediately heard the kettle switch click. The old woman busied herself with cups for a long time, pouring boiling water into them and laying out cookies. All in silence. At some point, I couldn't take it anymore. I just wanted to know, was it you who accidentally left me these notes? I put one on the table. She glanced at it, shook her head, and finally spoke. I don't know anything about the notes, but your apartment is bad. I'll tell you everything as it is, and then you decide what to do." And she started to tell me that the apartment was strange, that everyone moves out of there. Some after a week, some after 2, no one stays for long. She said, "The renovation is fresh and everything is fine, but people can't live there. People break down, and that's it. And before the renovation, a family lived there, a woman, a man, and a boy. A little one, about 6 or 7 years old. His name was Alicia." The old woman remembered how the boy walked through the stairwell, silently, as if floating on air, always alone, never meeting anyone's gaze. He looked past people at the floor, as if he was afraid to even make eye contact with another person. Not hello, not goodbye. He never said a word, as if he had swallowed his tongue. And that man, his stepfather, drank from morning till night, often yelled at the boy, threw things. The neighbors heard crashing, shouting, yea, and crying. Not for a day or 2, but constantly. One time, it seems, even a police officer came, but then everything went quiet. The boy's mother said everything was fine, just a misunderstanding. After that, it only got worse. The mother faded completely, her eyes empty. She walked like a shadow to the stores and back. She never smiled. Never. The boy completely stopped appearing, and then something happened that no one expected, but everyone seemed to have a premonition of. A fire at night. It happened quickly. One of the residents smelled burning and called the firefighters. When they arrived, the apartment was already ablaze. They said later that it was probably the stepfather who fell asleep with a lit cigarette. What can you expect from him? The mother probably didn't have time to get the boy out, or she herself was in shock. All 3 of them died from smoke inhalation. The old woman fell silent, staring at me without blinking. I felt my fingers trembling on my knees. My throat was dry. I nodded, thanked her awkwardly, and got up. As I walked back, the same thing kept running through my head. A terrible story, right? But does it explain the notes? No, it doesn't. And in general, this is all just a scary story, nothing more. In old houses, there are dozens of such stories, but the feeling that there is something else behind all this did not leave me. Especially when, after entering the apartment, I saw something black on the windowsill, like crumbs of charcoal, and I hadn't even opened the window. In the evening, I came home late and exhausted. I collapsed onto the couch without taking off my clothes. My head was spinning with thoughts of today's conversation with the neighbor and those stupid notes that gave me no peace. Maybe I should just leave this apartment. Who knows what other devilry is happening here? But moving again, looking for a new place, messin' with my things, seemed completely impossible right now. Okay, I'll think about it tomorrow. I had no strength left for anything today. I just closed my eyes and fell into a heavy sleep. I woke up suddenly. I didn't immediately understand what had woken me from my sleep. I lay motionless, listening to the night silence. My heart was pounding as if something had happened even before I realized it. And then I heard a quiet, plaintive child's cry, barely distinguishable, as if it was coming from somewhere far away. I sat up on the bed, trying to understand if I was dreaming all this. No, I wasn't. The sobs continued, echoing in my head. I slowly got up, stepped barefoot to the door, and carefully opened it. A chill wafted from the hallway. My skin was covered in goosebumps. I didn't turn on the light. I didn't want to attract attention, or maybe I didn't want to scare something that was in the apartment. The light from the streetlights barely broke through the cracks in the curtains. I took a few more steps, trying to move silently, and suddenly froze. The mirror in the hallway was fogged up, as if after a hot shower. In the ensuing ringing silence, I heard footsteps behind my back, light, quiet, almost inaudible. I quickly turned around, but it was empty, only darkness and shadows. When I turned back to the mirror, my heart skipped a beat. On its moist surface, crooked letters appeared, black and dirty, as if written with a finger smeared in soot. "Quieter, or he will come." I backed away, pressing my back against the cold wall. Blood pounded in my ears, my hands involuntarily began to tremble. Only one thought was beating in my head. Run. Leave this place immediately at any cost. Right now. I rushed to the closet, pulled out my bag, and began to chaotically throw things into it. Something was happening in the apartment. The walls trembled slightly, the floorboards creaked, as if someone heavy was walking back and forth. From the living room, a muffled creak was heard, and then a shadow flashed distinctly, in the darkness, sliding past the door. I shuddered, looking around. Now the inscriptions were appearing directly on the walls, barely noticeable in the light of the streetlights. Black letters. He is close, quieter, or he will do it. The bag fell from my hands. I stepped back, but immediately froze. The bathroom door opened by itself. The light turned on. From there, a mirror looked at me. In its dark reflection, I first saw my face. Pale, scared. My forehead was covered in sweat. My lips were trembling. My eyes were full of horror, but that wasn't the most terrifying thing. Directly behind my shoulder, the pale face of a child appeared. I wanted to turn away, but I couldn't. Hypnotized and bound by fear. The boy slowly opened his mouth, and I saw that he had no tongue, only a black, gaping hole. Out of horror, I screamed, and this scream seemed to wake up something dark, hidden in the apartment. The shadows began to move faster. A strange sound was heard, as if 1,000 voices whispered at the same time. "Quieter!" I started to shake. My legs felt like cotton. The only remaining instinct was the instinct of self-preservation. Run as far away as possible immediately. I rushed to the front door. My heart was pounding as if it was about to burst out. The lock would not give in to my trembling fingers. I pulled at it again and again. Finally, the door opened halfway and immediately slammed shut with a dull click. I didn't let go of it. It slammed shut by itself. The lock also clicked by itself and didn't respond to my attempts to open it, as if something was holding it. From behind my shoulder, almost in my ear, I heard, "Where are you going, you scamp?" I froze. The voice was alien, low and raspy. I went cold with horror and didn't find the strength to turn around. I just rushed to the nearest door. It turned out to be the bathroom, from which the light was still seeping. I pulled the bolt with all my might. Thank God it gave in. The next moment something heavy hit the door. I squeezed into the tiles, slid down, and hugged my knees with my hands. Outside, a drunken voice thundered. "You thought you'd hide? You can't hide from me, you scamp. I hear everything. I know where you are." My heart leaped to my throat. An involuntary cry, almost a sob, escaped my chest. I immediately covered my mouth with my hand. In response, the voice thundered even louder, angrier. "Making noise again, little one, stomping all over the apartment. You're not letting a person sleep. Well, it's nothing. I'll teach you how to behave." The door was hit again with such force that bottles clinked on a shelf somewhere. I desperately looked around the bathroom for anything I could use to defend myself. But all around there were only useless trifles: soap, a toothbrush, shampoo. The knocking became even stronger, as if someone was trying to break down the door. The voice continued with some kind of crazy triumph, inhuman rage. "I'll rip your rotten tongue out by the roots, so you shut up forever and don't bother me." The door was shaking. It seemed like it was about to fly off its hinges. I don't know how I found the strength, but I still got up and leaned my whole weight against it, trying to keep whatever was beating outside from getting in. I held the door with all my might, as if my life depended on it. And maybe it did. The latch had already flown off. The wood was groaning under the blows. The door was being pushed from the outside as if there wasn't just one pair of hands there, but a whole crowd. I heard heavy breathing and inarticulate dirty curses from outside, interspersed with promises to get rid of me forever. I was shaking all over with horror. My heart was thrashing like crazy. There was a ringing in my ears and my vision was blurry. And suddenly, if Rom behind my back, I heard a barely audible sound, quiet and plaintive. Someone sobbed intermittently, painfully, as if trying to stifle their suffering. A new attack of panic seized me. I was no longer sure if I even wanted to turn around, but the sobs repeated again, and this time they sounded so miserable, so desperate, that I couldn't take it, and I turned around. He was standing right by the bathtub, very close, half a meter away from me, and was looking with wide-open eyes, full of horror and pleading. It was the same boy from the mirror. But now he didn't seem like a reflection or an illusion. He was here, real, alive as a child can be with a frail silhouette of ashen shadows. His thin shoulders were trembling. His skin was almost transparent through his thin pajamas. His fingers were smeared with something black. Charcoal, I realized. The boy was sobbing quietly and heartbreakingly, as if trying to suppress the crying that was still breaking out. His pale lips trembled. He looked me straight in the eyes and whispered, barely audible, "Don't. Please. Help." I froze, pierced with pity and horror at the same time. At that second, I realized the terrible truth. It was him who was leaving me all these notes. He was trying to warn me, to protect me, to make me be quieter, just so I wouldn't repeat his fate. I looked at the boy and wanted to say something, but my throat was constricted with a spasm. At that same second, the door behind my back finally collapsed with a deafening crash, knocked out with such force that I was literally thrown to the side. I fell to the floor, hitting my head hard on the edge of the bathtub. White sparks flashed before my eyes. I couldn't focus my gaze right away, but when I managed to, I froze in horror. A man was standing in the doorway. He was huge, with a black, indistinguishable face woven from a thick, viscous darkness. His figure filled the entire doorway. The light was dim and trembling, and it seemed that the room itself was shrinking around him, trying to push this intruder away. In his hands he was clutching huge scissors, the blades of which gleamed menacingly in the flickering light of the bulb. The black man stepped forward heavily, tilted his head, and I saw that in place of his eyes were infinitely deep holes, filled with cold, lifeless emptiness. His voice was still the same nasty, drunken one, full of hatred and tired rage. "Crying again, you little scamp. You can't calm down. Well, now we'll shorten your rotten tongue. You'll become quieter right away." With these words, he moved forward, past me, straight towards the boy, stepping heavily on the tiled floor, and with every step the air seemed to become thicker and heavier, crushing my lungs. The boy trembled even more. A quiet, thin sob escaped his throat. He cringed and covered his head with his hands, as if expecting a blow. I don't know where I got the strength from, but at that moment I stopped thinking. I just got up from the floor and stepped forward, shielding the boy with my body. I almost physically felt his small, trembling body pressing against my back, how he instinctively tried to hide behind me. My knees were buckling. My hands wouldn't obey, but I still stood and looked straight into those black, empty eyes. "Don't touch him!" I shouted with a cracking voice, feeling everything in my chest constrict with fear. The black man froze for on, lay a moment, and then slowly tilted his head to the side as if studying me, stepped forward, and swung the scissors with such contempt and lightness as if he was about to cut not human flesh, but an unnecessary rag. The pain came instantly, scorching, sharp, piercing my chest through and through. I felt the cold blade of the scissors sink into me, tearing muscles and skin, and heard my own weak, pitiful scream. My legs buckled. My body became incredibly heavy. I sank to the floor, feeling a warm, sticky liquid spreading across my shirt. Before I fell onto the cold tile, I managed to notice the boy's face. He was looking at me with huge, tear-filled eyes. His lips were moving, repeating a silent, "I'm sorry," again and again. I wanted to say something, but the world around me was already being pulled into a thick, viscous darkness. The last thing I remember is pressing 3 digits on my phone with trembling hands, saying something incoherent to the dispatcher, muttering the address. Then only short fragments of consciousness, flashes of flashing lights, the faces of some people, the touch of cold hands on my chest, someone's fast, anxious voices. I woke up in a hospital room. I immediately felt the pain, dull and heavy. My chest felt as if it was being pulled together by metal rings. My head was spinning, but the most important thing was that I was alive. The nurse carefully explained that although the wound was serious, my internal organs were not badly affected. I was lucky. Lucky. What happened could hardly be called luck. For the first few days, I was afraid to close my eyes. As soon as I fell asleep, I would hear that voice, the creak of scissors, the boys crying. The blades would once again plunge into me with frightening clarity. But gradually, time smoothed out the fear, leaving behind only an anxious feeling. I couldn't go back there, to that apartment. After I was discharged, I spent a few nights at a friend's place, constantly putting off the moment when I would have to cross the threshold of my apartment again. But there was nothing I could do. My things were still there, and I had to live on. Finally, I gathered my strength and went to the cursed apartment. Standing in the stairwell in front of the door, I hesitated for a long time before entering. The hallway greeted me with an unpleasant, sticky silence. I carefully stepped inside, carefully looking at the familiar walls, afraid to see something new there. The traces of that nightmare hadn't disappeared. The bathroom door was gone. It was still lying on the floor, as if a reminder of that night. I quickly walked past it, went into the room, and silently began to pack my things. When everything was packed, I stopped in the hallway, looking around the walls for the last time, as if saying goodbye to this place forever. A scrap of paper was lying on the floor by the door. My heart sank. But curiosity overcame fear, and I slowly picked it up. The note was familiar, written with charcoal and in the same uneven, childish handwriting, with large, sprawling letters. I expected to see another warning there, but the words were different. Thank you for protecting me. I stood and looked at the paper, feeling my eyes fill with tears and my chest constricted with a strange, aching sadness. And suddenly the letters trembled, as if they were picked up by an invisible wind. The lines blurred before my eyes and turned into a thin gray ash, which quietly crumbled in my hands. I felt this ash pour through my fingers, leaving behind only warmth and a slight sadness. I went out onto the stairwell, closed the door, and without looking back, walked down the steps.